I stared at my phone screen, confused. The text message I'd just sent to my husband Grant about our daughter's school play showed a red exclamation mark. Message not delivered. I tried again. Same result. My stomach tightened with unease. Maybe it was a network issue. I opened Instagram to send him a quick DM instead. His profile didn't load. I searched for his name. Nothing. I tried Facebook. His account had vanished from my friends list. When I searched, I found him, but the Add Friend button stared back at me. He'd blocked me on everything. Cold dread washed over me like ice water. Grant and I had been having problems, sure. Arguments about money, about his late nights at work, about how disconnected we'd become. But blocking me? That was extreme. That was calculated. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I walked to the door on shaking legs, somehow knowing that whatever waited on the other side would change everything. A man in a polo shirt stood there holding a manila envelope. "Are you Juliet Henderson?" "Yes," I whispered. "You've been served." He handed me the envelope and walked away before I could respond. My hands trembled as I tore it open. The words swam before my eyes. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grant was divorcing me. And there, on page 3, the words that made my knees buckle. Petitioner requests full physical and legal custody of minor children. He wanted to take my kids. I collapsed on the couch, the papers scattered around me like toxic confetti. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. We'd been married for 12 years. We had 2 children, Olivia, 10, and Bennett, 7. Yes, things had been tense lately, but this was nuclear. I tried calling Grant. Blocked. I tried texting from my daughter's tablet. Nothing went through. He'd thought of everything. In a daze, I wandered through the house, looking for something, anything that might explain this. I ended up in the bedroom, pulling open drawers, searching through Grant's nightstand. That's when I remembered my old iPad. I'd replaced it 2 years ago and shoved the old one in a junk drawer in the kitchen. I dug through tangled chargers and old batteries until I found it. The screen was cracked, but it powered on. More importantly, it was still connected to our shared iCloud account. I watched as the device synced, downloading missed messages and voicemails. My heart pounded as notifications started popping up. Most were spam, but then I saw it, a voicemail from Grant's phone, left just 3 days ago. But it wasn't meant for me. I pressed play with trembling fingers. Grant's voice filled the quiet kitchen. "Hey, it's me. Just wanted to update you on the plan. Everything's moving forward. I've got the papers ready to serve her tomorrow. By the time we get to court, she'll look like the unstable one. Trust me, this is going to work perfectly." The voicemail ended. I played it again. And again. He'd planned this. All of it. I barely slept that night. By morning, I knew I needed help, real help. I had maybe $3,000 in my personal checking account. Grant handled all our finances, all our investments. I had no idea how I'd afford a lawyer. A friend had mentioned a legal aid clinic downtown once. I found the address online and drove there in a fog, the divorce papers clutched in my passenger seat. The waiting room was crowded and depressing. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I filled out forms with shaking hands, describing my situation in the tiny boxes provided. After 2 hours, a woman called my name. "Juliet Henderson?" I followed her to a small office. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes behind black-framed glasses. Her nameplate read Patricia Reeves, attorney at law. "Tell me what's going on," Patricia said, pulling out a legal pad. I handed her the divorce papers and explained everything. The blocking, the surprise service, the custody demand. Then I pulled out my iPad and played the voicemail. Patricia's expression changed instantly. Her jaw tightened. She played it again, then looked up at me with something like fire in her eyes. "This is evidence of intent to deceive the court," she said slowly. "Your husband just handed us a weapon, and I'm going to make sure we use it." She asked about my financial situation. When I told her I had almost nothing, she didn't hesitate. "I'm taking your case. Pro bono, if necessary. Men like your husband make me sick." Patricia moved fast. Within 2 days, she'd filed a response to Grant's petition and requested a temporary custody order that maintained the status quo, meaning the kids stayed with me in our family home until the court decided otherwise. But then she started digging into our finances, and what she found made me feel sick. "Juliet, when did Grant close your joint checking account?" Patricia asked during our third meeting.
"What?
"He didn't, did he?" She turned her laptop screen toward me. Bank records showed our joint account had been emptied and closed a week before he served me papers. $47,000 gone. "Where did it go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's what we need to find out. But there's more." Patricia pulled up another document. Grant filed a financial declaration with the court claiming he's currently unemployed. He quit his job at Northbridge Financial 2 weeks ago. I shook my head in disbelief. That's impossible. He's been going to work every day. He leaves at 7:30 in the morning. Then where is he going? Patricia leaned forward. Because according to his official resignation letter, he left the company to pursue other opportunities. But on his court filings, he's claiming unemployment so he can avoid paying spousal support and child support. The pieces started clicking together. Grant's late nights. His secretive phone calls. The new wardrobe he'd bought last month, claiming he needed to refresh his professional image. He'd been planning this for months. And he'd systematically cut off every financial resource I had, leaving me powerless. "We're going to prove he's lying," Patricia said firmly. "And when we do, the judge is going to crucify him." The break came from an unexpected source. My friend Deirdre called me 3 days later, her voice tight with anger. "Juliet, I just saw Grant. At Harborside Bistro, that fancy place downtown."
She paused.
"He was having what looked like a business lunch. Wearing a full suit. He was with Richard Colton." My blood ran cold. Richard Colton owned Silverstream Capital, Northbridge Financial's biggest competitor. Grant had complained about him for years, calling him a snake who poached employees and stole clients. I immediately called Patricia and told her everything. "That's our proof," Patricia said, and I could hear her typing furiously in the background. "I'm filing a subpoena right now for Silverstream Capital's employment and payroll records. If Grant is working there and getting paid under the table, we're going to find it." 2 weeks later, we had our answer. The subpoena came back with damning evidence. Grant had been hired by Silverstream Capital 3 weeks before he served me divorce papers. His official salary? $0, according to tax documents. But buried in the company's financial records were payments to a consulting LLC that Patricia traced directly back to Grant. He was making even more than before, $170,000 a year, but it was being funneled through a shell company to hide it from the court and avoid paying me support. "This is fraud," Patricia said, her voice cold with satisfaction. "Financial fraud, perjury on his court declarations. He's done." But we weren't finished digging yet. Grant had moved out of our house the day he served me papers. He'd taken some clothes and his laptop, claiming he was staying at his brother's place for the kids' sake to avoid conflict. But I still had keys to his home office in our garage, a converted space where he'd spent countless hours over the years. Patricia advised me to document everything before he could come back and clear it out. I went through his desk carefully, taking photos of everything. Most of it was boring, old tax returns, expired warranties, bank statements I'd already seen. But when I reached the bottom drawer, something fell off. It didn't slide all the way out. I pulled harder. Nothing. I got down on my knees and reached into the back of the drawer. My fingers touched something taped underneath.
A key.
It was small, brass, with a number stamped on it. 0847. A storage unit key. I'd never known Grant had a storage unit. We had a garage, a basement, an attic. Why would he need external storage? I took photos of the key and immediately texted them to Patricia. Her response came in seconds. "Don't go there alone. I'm filing an emergency motion to inspect it with a court order. If he's hiding assets, we need it documented officially." 3 days later, Patricia called with good news. Judge Brennan granted the motion. "We're inspecting the unit tomorrow at 10 a.m. A court officer will be there to document everything. That night, I barely slept. What was Grant hiding? The storage facility was on the industrial side of town, surrounded by chain-link fences and concrete. Patricia met me there with a court officer named Dennis, a bored-looking man with a clipboard who'd probably seen everything. Unit 0847 was in the back corner. I handed Dennis the key with shaking hands. He unlocked the padlock and rolled up the metal door. My jaw dropped. The unit was packed. In the center sat a gorgeous cherry-red vintage car, Grant's late father's 1967 Mustang. Grant had told me he'd sold it 2 years ago to help with bills. Clearly, that was a lie. Behind the car were boxes stacked floor to ceiling. Dennis started documenting everything while Patricia pulled out her camera. We opened box after box. Expensive golf clubs. Grant had claimed they were stolen. A collection of rare baseball cards worth thousands. His grandfather's coin collection. Electronics still in their packaging. But the most damning discovery was in a file box labeled Important Documents. Inside were financial statements for 3 bank accounts I'd never heard of, all in Grant's name only. The balances made my head spin. $200,000. Just sitting there, hidden, while he told the court he was broke. There were also property deeds. Grant owned a small rental property across town, something he'd never mentioned. According to the papers, it generated $2,000 a month in rental income. Patricia was practically glowing. He claimed in his financial declaration that he had minimal assets and no income. We now have proof that he committed perjury. Multiple counts. Dennis finished his documentation, and we locked the unit back up. The evidence was secured. Grant's lies were unraveling. Grant's strategy in the divorce wasn't just about money. He wanted full custody of our children, and his approach was vicious. In his court filings, he painted me as an uninvolved, neglectful mother who prioritized herself over the kids. One section read, Mrs. Henderson has consistently failed to engage with the children's educational needs, social development, and daily care. Petitioner has been the primary caregiver throughout the marriage. I read those words over and over, tears streaming down my face. It was a complete fiction. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for the first 7 years of Olivia's life. When I did go back to work part-time, I still handled everything: school drop-offs, doctor's appointments, playdates, homework, bedtime routines. Grant was barely present. Patricia believed me, but we needed proof. Testimony isn't enough, she explained. We need witnesses who can corroborate your involvement. That's when I remembered Fiona, our former nanny. We'd hired her when I went back to work 4 years ago. She'd been with us for 2 years before moving to another state for family reasons. She'd seen everything, the daily reality of our family. Patricia tracked down Fiona's new number. I called her, nervous about dragging her into this mess. Juliet. Fiona's warm voice answered. How are you? How are the kids? I explained the situation, my voice breaking as I described Grant's accusations. There was a long silence. That lying piece of... Fiona caught herself. Juliet, you are an amazing mom. You are an amazing mom. Grant was never there. I'll testify. I'll tell the judge exactly what I saw. Patricia drew up a witness statement, and Fiona signed it remotely. Her words were clear and powerful. During my 2 years as the Henderson family's nanny, Juliet was the primary caregiver in every sense. She handled all school communications, medical appointments, and daily childcare. Grant rarely interacted with the children and frequently canceled plans with them for work obligations. Grant's court filings also claimed he was the parent who helped with homework, who attended school events, who was involved in their education. Another lie, but one I could prove. I went through my phone's photo gallery, scrolling back through years of memories. And there it was, a project from last spring. Bennett's 3rd grade science assignment. Build a model of the solar system. I'd stayed up until 2 in the morning helping Bennett create it. We'd used styrofoam balls, paint, wire, and cardboard. I'd taken dozens of photos throughout the process. Bennett painting Jupiter's red spot, me helping him measure orbital distances, both of us laughing as we attached Saturn's rings. The metadata on the photos showed the exact date and time, April 17th, 11:47 p.m. through April 18th, 2:13 a.m. Grant was visible in exactly one photo, asleep on the couch in the background. I printed everything and brought it to Patricia. She smiled grimly. This is perfect. We'll submit this as evidence of your hands-on involvement. The timestamp proves you're telling the truth. But we didn't stop there. I pulled out every school project I'd saved: Olivia's state history diorama, Bennett's book report poster, artwork from both kids with my handwriting on the back noting the dates and contexts. Years of evidence showing I was the involved parent. I also found programs from every school play, concert, and sports event, all with my name written inside, notes about where we sat, what the kids wore, how they performed. Grant hadn't attended a single event in the past 3 years. He always had work emergencies. Patricia's next move was brilliant. Grant had claimed in his declarations that he handled all the children's medical needs, that he was the parent who attended appointments and made healthcare decisions. We're going to request medical records from their pediatrician, Patricia said. Every appointment, every form, every signature. Let's see who was really there. Dr. Wesley's office sent over the complete records within a week. 10 years of documentation. Every single well-child visit, sick appointment, vaccination, and follow-up. The pattern was crystal clear. Parent present. Juliet Henderson. Every single
time.
The forms requiring parental signatures? My signature only. Emergency contact information? My number listed first, often as the only contact. Insurance paperwork? All filled out and signed by me. Grant's name appeared on the original intake forms from when Olivia was born, but after that, nothing. He'd never attended an appointment. Not one. There were even notes from Dr. Wesley in the files. One from 3 years ago read, Mother reports father is often traveling for work. She handles all medical decisions and medication administration. Patricia had the records certified by Dr. Wesley's office and prepared them as exhibits. She also requested that Dr. Wesley be available to testify, if needed. When we put this in front of the judge, Patricia said, Grant's credibility will be destroyed. He's claiming he's the medical decision-maker, but the records prove he's lying. That's perjury, and judges hate liars. The evidence was mounting. Every claim Grant made in his filings, we were systematically dismantling with proof. The voicemail that started everything needed to be ironclad. Patricia sent the audio file to a forensic expert who specialized in digital evidence authentication. The expert, a man named Dr. Patel, verified that the recording was genuine, unaltered, and provided a detailed technical report about its metadata, timestamp, and origin. He confirmed it was recorded on Grant's phone number and uploaded to our shared iCloud account automatically. Dr. Patel also provided a professional transcript. Hey, it's me. Just wanted to update you on the plan. Everything's moving forward. I've got the papers ready to serve her tomorrow. By the time we get to court, she'll look like the unstable one. Trust me, this is going to work perfectly. Patricia had the transcript notarized and authenticated. This is admissible now, she explained. And that phrase, she'll look like the unstable one, proves Grant's intent to manipulate the court system. This isn't just a divorce filing. It's a calculated attack designed to make you look unfit. She made copies of everything and prepared it as our key piece of evidence. The voicemail would be played in court, and Grant would have to explain his own words. I listened to it again, and this time I didn't feel hurt. I felt angry. Grant had underestimated me. He thought I'd crumble under his attack, that I'd be too broken to fight back. He was wrong. We're going to use his own voice to hang him, Patricia said with quiet satisfaction. And there's nothing his lawyer can do to stop it. Patricia also coached me on something I hadn't considered, recording conversations with Grant. In our state, only one party needed to consent to recording a phone call, which meant I could legally record our conversations without telling him. Call him about the kids, Patricia instructed. Ask basic questions about their routines, their needs. If he's really the involved parent he claims to be, he should have no problem answering. I called Grant from a recorded line Patricia set up. My hands shook as I dialed. What do you want, Juliet? His voice was cold. I need to talk about the kids' schedules. Olivia has a field trip next week, and Bennett needs. Talk to my lawyer. I'm not discussing anything with you directly. Grant, this is about our children. Just answer a few questions. What's Bennett's current shoe size? We need to buy him new sneakers. Silence. Then, I don't know, like a 4 or 5? He was off by 3 sizes. Bennett wore a 7.
Okay.
What about Olivia's allergy? Should I pack her EpiPen for the field trip? Another pause. What allergy? My heart pounded. Grant, she's been allergic to tree nuts since she was 3 years old. You don't remember? Of course I do. You caught me off guard. I'm at work. I pressed on, keeping my voice calm. What time is Bennett's soccer practice on Tuesdays? It's at 5? No, 6. Around then. Bennett didn't play soccer. He quit last year to join the art club. What's the name of Olivia's current teacher? Mrs. Johnson? Look, I don't have time for this 20 questions game. Talk to my lawyer. He hung up. I sat there staring at the phone. The recording complete. Grant couldn't answer basic questions about his own children, their sizes, their allergies, their schedules, their teachers. Patricia listened to the recording with a grim smile. He just failed a parenting quiz. This will destroy his custody claim. Grant had hired an expensive lawyer, Virginia Pemberton, from a prestigious downtown firm. She was known for being ruthless and winning custody cases for wealthy fathers. She charged $500 an hour, and Grant was clearly sparing no expense. Mrs. Pemberton immediately went on the offensive. She filed motions to exclude the voicemail, claiming it was obtained illegally through unauthorized access to digital accounts. She tried to block the storage unit evidence, arguing we'd invaded Grant's privacy. Patricia fought back hard. In her response briefs, she methodically dismantled every argument. The voicemail was accessed through a shared iCloud account that Mrs. Henderson had legitimate access to as part of the marital estate. There is no privacy violation when accessing jointly owned digital property. Regarding the storage unit, the key was found in the marital home during routine documentation of assets. The storage unit itself was paid for with marital funds, as evidenced by bank statements. Mr. Henderson cannot claim privacy for assets hidden from his spouse using marital resources. Patricia also went further, painting Grant as someone with a pattern of deception and concealment designed to defraud both his spouse and the court system. The back and forth continued for weeks. Mrs. Pemberton filed motions. Patricia filed responses. They argued over every piece of evidence, every witness, every procedural detail. But Patricia was winning. She knew the law better, argued more persuasively, and most importantly, had truth on her side. Rich lawyers can't win if the facts are against them, Patricia told me. And every fact is against Grant. We had a pretrial hearing in front of Judge Catherine Brennan, a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings. She'd been a family court judge for 20 years and had seen every trick in the book. Mrs. Pemberton stood confidently, her designer suit impeccable, her briefcase expensive leather. She began arguing why the voicemail should be excluded, using terms like fruit of the poisonous tree and expectation of privacy. Judge Brennan listened without expression. Then she turned to Patricia. Ms. Reeves, your response? Patricia stood calmly. Your Honor, the voicemail was accessed through legitimate means using jointly owned property. More importantly, the content of that voicemail is directly relevant to this case. Mr. Henderson explicitly states his plan to make Mrs. Henderson look unstable in court. That's evidence of intent to deceive this court, which Your Honor has every right to consider. Judge Brennan nodded slowly. I agree. The voicemail is admissible. Motion denied. Mrs. Pemberton's expression tightened. She tried again with the storage unit evidence. Judge Brennan cut her off mid-argument. Counselor, are you seriously arguing that your client can hide assets in a storage unit paid for with marital funds, lie about those assets on his financial declarations, and then claim privacy protection? That's not how this works. Your Honor, I'm simply... Motion denied. The storage unit evidence is admissible. Judge Brennan looked over her reading glasses at Grant, who sat rigidly beside his lawyer. And Mr. Henderson, I suggest you revise your financial declarations immediately to include all assets. Perjury is a serious crime. Grant's face went pale. Patricia caught my eye and gave the tiniest smile. Judge Brennan was on our side. The trial date arrived. I dressed carefully in a simple blue dress, minimal makeup, trying to look like the responsible mother I was. Patricia met me outside the courtroom and squeezed my hand. Remember, stay calm no matter what Mrs. Pemberton says. We have the evidence. We have the truth. Grant is going to fall apart up there. We entered the courtroom. Grant was already seated at the defendant's table with Mrs. Pemberton. He wore an expensive charcoal suit, his hair perfectly styled. He looked confident, powerful, like someone who'd never lose. He didn't even glance at me. Judge Brennan entered, and we all stood. She took her seat, arranged her papers, and looked out over the courtroom with sharp, assessing eyes. This is a dissolution of marriage case with contested custody, she began. I've reviewed all the filings. We'll start with opening statements. Mrs. Pemberton stood first. Her voice was smooth, practiced. Your Honor, this case is about a father fighting for his children. Grant Henderson has been the stable, involved parent throughout this marriage. He's provided financially, he's been present, he's made sacrifices. Meanwhile, Mrs. Henderson has been increasingly unstable, unable to handle basic parenting responsibilities. My client is seeking custody not out of spite, but out of genuine concern for his children's welfare. It took everything in me not to react. Patricia's hand found mine under the table, steadying me. Then Patricia stood. Her voice was quiet but powerful. Your Honor, this case is actually about a man who systematically lied to his wife, to this court, and even to himself. The evidence will show that Mr. Henderson has committed perjury on his financial declarations, hidden assets, concealed income, and planned a deliberate campaign to falsely portray his wife as unfit. The truth will come out. Mrs. Pemberton called Grant to the stand first. He walked up confidently, was sworn in, and settled into the witness chair like he belonged there. Mrs. Pemberton led him through a carefully rehearsed testimony. Grant described himself as a devoted father who coached Little League, helped with homework every night, attended every school event. He claimed I was distant and preoccupied with my own interests. Then it was Patricia's turn. She stood slowly, gathering her notes, and approached the witness stand. Mr. Henderson, you testified that you help with homework every night. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Patricia pulled out a photo. This is Bennett's solar system project from last April. Who made this?
Grant squinted at it.
I don't recall that specific project. The metadata on these photos shows it was completed between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. on April 17th and 18th. Where were you? Grant hesitated. I may have been working late, or sleeping on the couch while your wife did the work. Patricia showed the photo where he was visible, asleep in the background. Grant's jaw tightened. One project doesn't mean. Let's talk about medical care. You testified you handle the children's medical needs. How many doctor's appointments have you attended in the past 10 years? I've been to many appointments. Patricia submitted the medical records. These certified records from Dr. Wesley show that your wife attended every single appointment. You attended 0. Would you like to revise your testimony? Sweat appeared on Grant's forehead. I may have misremembered. Patricia pressed on, relentless. You testified you're unemployed, but you're actually employed by Silverstream Capital, earning $170,000 annually, correct? That's a consulting arrangement, not employment. A consulting arrangement you failed to disclose on your financial declarations. My lawyer advised, yes or no, Mr. Henderson. Did you disclose this income?
No.
Patricia let Grant's admission hang in the air. Then she pulled out her phone and connected it to the courtroom's audio system. Mr. Henderson, do you recognize your own voice? She pressed play. Grant's voice filled the silent courtroom. Hey, it's me. Just wanted to update you on the plan. Everything's moving forward. I've got the papers ready to serve her tomorrow. By the time we get to court, she'll look like the unstable one. Trust me, this is going to work perfectly. The effect was immediate and devastating. Grant's face went white. Mrs. Pemberton closed her eyes briefly. Judge Brennan leaned forward, her expression hard. Patricia spoke into the silence. "That's your voice, isn't it, Mr. Henderson?" That was taken out of context. What context makes she'll look like the unstable one acceptable? You plan to make your wife appear unfit for custody. That's not concern for your children. That's manipulation of this court. Grant tried to respond, but words failed him. He looked at his lawyer desperately. Mrs. Pemberton stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is arguing rather than questioning." Overruled. "The witness will answer." Grant stammered. I was upset. I said things I didn't mean." Patricia pulled out more documents. "Let's discuss the storage unit full of assets you claimed didn't exist. The vintage Mustang. The bank accounts totaling $200,000. The rental property generating monthly income. You testified under oath that you had minimal assets. Was that true?" "I forgot about some of those things." "You forgot about $200,000? Silence. Patricia methodically destroyed Grant's testimony. She presented the bank records showing he'd emptied the joint account. The employment records proving he'd lied about being jobless. The storage unit inventory documenting hidden assets. Each piece of evidence was like a hammer blow. Grant's confident demeanor crumbled. He contradicted himself multiple times, got dates wrong, couldn't remember basic details of his own lies. Patricia introduced the rental property deed. "This property generates $2,000 monthly, correct?" "Around that, yes." "But you didn't disclose it on your financial declarations. In fact, you claimed zero income and minimal assets. Do you understand that's perjury?" Mrs. Pemberton objected repeatedly, but Judge Brennan overruled her every time. The judge was clearly angry, her mouth set in a tight line as she watched Grant squirm. Finally, Patricia submitted his signed financial declarations alongside the evidence proving every statement was false. "Your Honor, Mr. Henderson signed these documents under oath. He swore they were true and complete. The evidence proves they were neither. He deliberately lied to this court to avoid his financial obligations to his wife and children." Judge Brennan studied the documents, her expression darkening. "Mr. Henderson, do you understand the seriousness of lying under oath in this courtroom?" Grant's voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor." "I'm not convinced you do. We'll address this further in my ruling. Continue, Ms. Reeves." Patricia smiled thinly. "Actually, Your Honor, I'd like to call our witnesses now." Fiona testified first. She described the daily reality of the Henderson household with painful clarity. Juliet was there for everything. School pickups, homework help, bedtime stories, packing lunches. Grant would come home late, sometimes not at all. When he was home, he was usually on his phone or laptop working. "Did Mr. Henderson spend quality time with the children?" Patricia asked.
Rarely.
He'd promise to take them to the park or play games, then cancel for work calls. The kids learned not to expect him to follow through. Mrs. Pemberton tried to discredit her on cross-examination, suggesting Fiona was biased, but Fiona held firm. "I have no reason to lie. I'm simply telling you what I witnessed." Next, Patricia called Dr. Wesley. The pediatrician brought the complete medical files and testified that in 10 years of treating Olivia and Bennett, he'd only ever interacted with me. Mrs. Henderson attended every appointment, knew every detail of her children's medical histories, asked informed questions, and followed all treatment plans. "I never met Mr. Henderson. I wouldn't recognize him if he walked into my office." Mrs. Pemberton tried to argue that work obligations prevented Grant from attending, but Dr. Wesley shut that down. Many working parents attend medical appointments. They make it a priority. Mr. Henderson apparently did not. The testimony was damning. Between Fiona and Dr. Wesley, they painted an undeniable picture. I was the primary caregiver. Grant was absent. Patricia rested her case. "Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself." After Grant rested his case, which consisted mostly of character witnesses who testified he was a good guy and seemed like a good father, Judge Brennan sat back in her chair. She was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents before her. Then she looked directly at Grant. "Mr. Henderson, please approach the witness stand again." Grant stood on shaky legs and returned to the stand. His confidence was completely gone. Judge Brennan leaned forward. Her voice was calm, but carried an edge sharp enough to cut. "Mr. Henderson, you've testified at length about being an involved, hands-on father. You've claimed to handle medical decisions, school activities, daily care." "Yes, Your Honor." "Then answer this simple question." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "What are your children's current shoe sizes?" Grant froze. You could hear people in the gallery inhaling sharply. Olivia wears, I think, a size 5. What about Bennett? Maybe a 4? Wrong on both counts. Try again. Grant looked panicked. 6? 7? You don't know, do you? What's the name of their current pediatrician? Grant glanced at Mrs. Pemberton desperately. It's Dr. I'm drawing a blank, Your Honor. Dr. Wesley. You've allegedly been making medical decisions for 10 years, but you don't know your children's doctor's name. What about their teachers? Who is Olivia's 5th grade teacher? Mrs. Johnson. Ms. Chun. Bennett's teacher. Silence. Grant's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Judge Brennan continued, relentless. What are their current favorite subjects in school? What extracurricular activities are they involved in? What are their best friends' names? Grant couldn't answer a single question. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Grant sat there, frozen, his face red with shame and panic. He couldn't answer basic questions about his own children, questions any involved parent would know instantly. Judge Brennan let the silence stretch, making sure everyone absorbed what had just happened. Then she spoke. Mr. Henderson stepped down. Grant stumbled back to his seat. Mrs. Pemberton looked like she wanted to disappear. Patricia remained calm, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. Judge Brennan shuffled her papers. I've heard enough. I'll deliver my ruling now. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. In my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely encountered a case with such clear-cut evidence of deception and manipulation. Mr. Henderson, you came into this courtroom claiming to be a devoted father and portrayed your wife as unstable and unfit. The evidence proves the opposite. She looked down at her notes. You committed perjury on your financial declarations multiple times. You hid income, concealed assets, and lied about your employment status. You systematically emptied joint accounts to leave your wife without resources to defend herself. You recorded a voicemail explicitly stating your plan to make Mrs. Henderson look unstable in court. Grant stared at the floor. Most damning of all, you couldn't answer. Basic questions about your own children. Their shoe sizes. Their doctor. Their teachers. These are things any involved parent knows without thinking. Your testimony was a fabrication, and this court will not reward fraud. Judge Brennan's voice grew harder. Your behavior has been calculated and cruel. You attempted to manipulate this court system for your own benefit, with no regard for your children's well-being or the truth. She paused, then delivered her ruling. I hereby grant Mrs. Henderson primary physical and legal custody of both minor children. Mr. Henderson will have supervised visitation every other weekend, pending completion of a parenting course. Grant's head snapped up, his face ashen. Mrs. Pemberton put a hand on his arm, but he shook it off. Judge Brennan wasn't finished. Furthermore, given the egregious nature of Mr. Henderson's financial deception, I'm ordering an immediate forensic accounting of all marital assets. Any additional hidden assets will be divided accordingly. Patricia squeezed my hand under the table. Tears streamed down my face, but these were tears of relief. Judge Brennan continued with the financial arrangements, and her words made Grant visibly shrink in his seat. The marital home will remain with Mrs. Henderson and the children. Given that Mr. Henderson systematically stripped the joint accounts and hid assets, I'm awarding Mrs. Henderson the full value of those accounts, $47,000, to be repaid within 90 days. Grant's lawyer whispered frantically to him, but he just stared straight ahead. regarding the hidden assets discovered in the storage unit, including the vehicle, property, and bank accounts totaling approximately $200,000. Mrs. Henderson will receive 60% of these assets as a direct consequence of Mr. Henderson's fraudulent concealment. Judge Brennan flipped to another page. Now, let's discuss support. Mr. Henderson claimed unemployment to avoid support obligations. The evidence proves he earns $170,000 annually through Silverstream Capital, plus an additional $2,000 per month from rental property income. She calculated quickly. Child support will be calculated based on his actual income of $194,000 annually. That comes to $3,200 per month. Spousal support, given the length of the marriage and Mrs. Henderson's reduced earning capacity from being the primary caregiver, will be $2,000 per month for 5 years. Grant made a choking sound. Mrs. Pemberton was writing furiously. That's a total of $5,200 monthly. These payments begin immediately and will continue as ordered. Failure to pay will result in wage garnishment and possible contempt charges. Patricia leaned close and whispered, "He's going to be paying you over $60,000 a year. Plus, he has to return the stolen money and give you most of the hidden assets. You won." 1 year later, I stood in my kitchen in my house, watching Olivia and Bennett do homework at the table. The afternoon sun streamed through windows I'd cleaned just that morning. The house felt peaceful, safe, truly like home for the first time in years. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. Grant had tried to appeal Judge Brennan's ruling, but his appeal was denied. Every single one of her orders stood. I'd used some of the settlement money to fix up the house. New paint, repaired appliances, a renovated backyard where the kids actually played now. The rest went into savings and a college fund for Olivia and Bennett. I'd also gone back to work full-time at a marketing firm downtown. The job was challenging and fulfilling, and it felt good to use my brain again, to be valued for my skills. My boss was supportive, understanding about my schedule with the kids. The monthly support payments came like clockwork, automatically deposited. Grant had learned not to miss payments after Judge Brennan had threatened him with jail time for being late the first month. Olivia looked up from her math homework. "Mom, can you help me with this problem?" "Of course, sweetie." I sat beside her, explaining the concept patiently until she understood. These were the moments Grant had claimed to cherish, but had never actually lived. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Coffee next week? Want to hear how you're doing?" I smiled and typed back. "Absolutely. So much to catch up on." Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It was mine. And it was good. Bennett's art show was on a Thursday evening. He'd been so excited all week, chattering about his painting that would be displayed in the school gymnasium alongside all the other third graders' work. I arrived early with my parents, who'd become even more involved with the kids since the divorce. They helped me find Bennett's painting, a bright, cheerful piece showing our house with the 3 of us in front, holding hands. "That's beautiful," my mom said, her voice catching. "He's healing." Other parents mingled around us. Some I knew from years of school events. Many had heard about the divorce. It had been fairly public given the trial, but most were kind, supportive even. Bennett ran up to us, his face glowing. "Did you see it? Do you like it?" "I love it," I said, pulling him into a hug. "I'm so proud of you." Olivia appeared with her friend Lucy. "Mom, can Lucy come over this weekend?"
"Sure."
"I'll talk to her mom." This was normal. This was what childhood should look like. Art shows and sleepovers and family who showed up. Not conflict and lies and absent parents. Grant was allowed supervised visitation, but he rarely exercised it. According to the court-appointed supervisor, he'd canceled half his scheduled visits, claiming work conflicts. The kids were disappointed at first, but they'd adjusted. They were resilient. As we left the school that night, Bennett held my hand. "Dad didn't come," he said quietly. "I know, buddy. But I'm here. Grandma and Grandpa are here. We all love you so much." "I know," he said, and squeezed my hand. It happened on a Saturday morning at the grocery store. I was in the cereal aisle comparing prices when I saw him. Grant stood at the far end, looking at his phone, a basket in his hand. He looked different, older somehow, tired. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair needed cutting. The confident, polished man from the courtroom was gone. He looked up and saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then he quickly looked away and turned down a different aisle. I stood there, waiting for some feeling to hit me. Anger? Satisfaction? Something? But I felt nothing. Not hatred, not even pity really. Just nothing. He was a stranger now, someone who'd once been important but had faded into irrelevance. I finished my shopping and headed to check out. As I loaded groceries onto the conveyor belt, I caught a glimpse of Grant at the customer service counter. He was arguing with the clerk about something, his voice rising in frustration. The clerk looked uncomfortable. The woman behind me in line leaned close. Some people never learn, do they? I just smiled and didn't respond. In the parking lot, I loaded my groceries into my car, a newer used SUV I'd bought with my first bonus from work. Reliable, safe, mine. As I drove home, I thought about everything that had happened. The shock of the divorce papers. The terror of potentially losing my children. The battle in court. Judge Brennan's devastating questions that exposed Grant's lies. The truth had set me free. Not just legally, but emotionally. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd ever known. That I could fight back. That justice, while sometimes slow, could prevail. I pulled into my driveway. Through the front window, I could see Olivia and Bennett playing a board game in the living room, my parents supervising. They looked happy. Safe.
Loved.
That's what mattered. Not revenge. Not making Grant suffer. Just building a good life for my kids and myself. I grabbed the groceries and walked inside, leaving the past behind me where it belonged. My phone buzzed with the automatic deposit notification, Grant's monthly support payment. Right on time. I glanced at it briefly, then deleted the notification. The money was useful, but it didn't define me. I'd survived his betrayal. I'd exposed his lies. I'd won custody of my children and built a new life from the wreckage he'd created. And most importantly, I'd learned that the truth, simple, honest truth, was the most powerful weapon of all. Judge Brennan had asked one question Grant couldn't answer, and that question had changed everything. Because a man who doesn't know his own children's shoe sizes has no business claiming to be a devoted father. The truth always comes out eventually. Sometimes it just needs a little help. I closed the door behind me and heard my children laughing. That sound, more than anything, told me we were going to be okay. We already were.